I'll get into some of the settings on the radio and just go through them. So basically, first I'll go through the buttons themselves. Right here you have what they call the master control button. It's the volume button for the most part to turn it. If you press it in, it goes into the system settings of the radio itself. There's a back button right here, which also doubles as your display button when you, depending on what input you're on. It doesn't do anything under radio, and right now I'm on radio. If you're on any other input, for the most part, if you hit that button, it will change, you know, like your song title, album title, you know, whose phone is connected, that sort of thing. It'll change all that as far as how much space it takes up on the screen, and that's pretty valuable. Over here is the band button, and that is simply, you know, AM, FM type of thing. Up here is the SRC, which is source, and if you press that, you can scroll through your different sources. Let me just get back to radio. Okay. Sources would be your, you know, radio, auxiliary input in the back, which is a 3.5 millimeter jack, your USB input, it's got Pandora, so if you're hooked up by USB, actually it doesn't, or Bluetooth, you could set that which way you want it. You could have a kind of a native interface to Pandora from your phone. I'll show that in a minute. I think that's about it for inputs. There might be others. Then you have this kind of magnifying glass button up here, and that would be if you're listening to your iPhone, you know, or your phone, whatever it might be. When you press that, you could get into your playlist, you know, search by album, artist, that sort of thing. If you're listening to Pandora and you press that button, it'll show, you know, the radio stations, you know, whatever you have set up in Pandora. It's all specific to you. Then you have the phone button right here, and that's used for a couple of different things, but if you press it, that will take you into your information from your phone. So I have missed calls, dialed calls, you know, received calls, phone book, all that stuff. And you could go in there and you could dial straight from it. If you hit the phone button itself and hold it, this brings up like your Bluetooth settings, what you have paired, a couple of other functions, PIN code, things like that. In the upper left hand corner you have the mix button, and that activates the mix tracks feature. I'll show that in a little bit. As far as I know, mix tracks only works when you're connected by USB. It doesn't work for me when I'm on Bluetooth. And let's see, there's behind the master control button, there's also this dial ring, and that depends on what input you're using. It's a little tricky to use, but right now I'm in radio, so it changes the station. If you are on, you know, like your phone or whatever, that will change the track forward and backwards. If you are in Pandora, that will function as a thumbs up or thumbs down if you hold it in either direction. If you just turn it one way or the other, I believe it skips the song. So another thing I'll mention is that I do have the steering wheel control hookup for this. So this radio has the input on it. Almost all radios do, for the most part, except for the really low-end stuff. The JVC also had it. I had it hooked up to both. They both worked fine. It's about a $50 adapter to be able to do it. My steering wheel is pretty simple. It just has volume up and down, you know, fast forward, backwards, like to skip tracks, and then it has a mode button. So the mode button, when it depends what's going on, but mode for the most part is I could change my source. So right now I'm doing this from my steering wheel. And I'm back to radio. It changes, by the way, the source changes really quick and kicks in almost immediately. If I remember correctly, the JVC took quite a while. I mean, that's probably exaggerating, you know, a second or two. Whereas this one, now I have, I'm using the auxiliary input on this is coming from my Sirius satellite tuner that I already had before I bought this. It's external. I have it down here in this cubby hole. Oh, it's behind my gear shift knob. You can't see it. So, sorry about that. But it's nice and out of the way and hidden. So if I go change my source to, that's auxiliary right there. Oh, I have the volume down. So I'll just go through just show you how quick it kicks in. So I'm going through the sources, and I heard the volume before I even let go of the button, pretty much, for the most part. So let me just get back to radio. Radio, by the way, will show, depends on the radio station. This isn't HD radio, this is just regular, and it doesn't do, this radio model doesn't do HD. Again, you have to get the BH model for that. It'll scroll through the station name and the artist and the song, typically. So, and again, I can't change that as far as I know on FM, as far as how it displays things. Shows the channel number down here, shows your signal strength, which, unless that's my phone, I'm not sure. I believe that's the radio station signal strength. Yeah, it might be my phone. And then that's just a Bluetooth indicator showing that I am paired up to my phone. I don't really ever have disconnects. Once in a blue moon I have to shut it off and turn it back on to make everything sync up properly. It does happen. It also happened on the JVC, if not more. So, okay. So again, I recommend if you have steering wheel controls, I debated whether or not to spend the 40 or 50 bucks because it seemed a little crazy to spend 50 bucks for a small little adapter. But whether you're doing it yourself or you're paying somebody to do it, highly recommend it. It's worth it to get it, for sure. When you get an incoming call, you could also, at least on mine, even though I don't have, this car didn't have hands-free, so I have no hands-free controls on my steering wheel. I could hit the mode button on my steering wheel and it answers the call. I don't even have to take my hands off the wheel. So, alright, I think that's about it for the buttons. Up here you just have the eject for the CD. I haven't even used the CD player yet. I probably will at some point, and because honestly I believe it's probably the best sounding audio there is anymore, the way everything's so compressed. And speaking of that, this Pioneer supports, I just remember reading it when I was chopping, FLAC files. I assume that it's called FLAC. But they are like high resolution audio files. You know, the file sizes are larger. You can play those on this stereo. I believe the only way to play them is through the USB adapter. So you would have to connect, you know, a USB thumb drive or something like that to play them. If they were stored on your phone, if that's even possible, I don't know if you could play them that way. So again, as far as the cabling for the radio itself, I got this radio again because of the connections in the back. I wanted it as clean as possible. So the radio, the Pioneer 8700, does come with a USB extension cable. So you could plug it into the back of the radio and then run it wherever you want. I ran it down the back of the dash and have it kind of just below the lower section where, you know, like where you put your feet down below on the passenger side, so I could just kind of reach up in there and connect whatever cable I want to without having to take the whole stereo out. So I just have a USB to iPhone cable currently. If I had to replace it, I could do that easily if my charging cable my USB cable craps out at some point. And then I also have a 3.5 millimeter cable. It did not come with that. It's just a female that kind of hangs off the back of the radio, from what I remember. So I just use a 3.5 millimeter cable, which runs down the back, and then I drilled a hole in the back of my cubby hole here to bring it into the satellite receiver. So you could do that if you're going to use it. I recommend it, even if you have no plans to use it. Putting one in when you install the stereo, so that it's there if you need it later. You know, somebody might be in your car and you want them to, they want to play something from their phone or something. One other thing to mention is that on both the JVC and the Pioneer, I have a ham radio license, so I'm going to be putting a ham radio in this car at some point, and I might want to be able to play it through my stereo, the audio. On the JVC that has a satellite input on it, very inexpensively, for like $6 or $7, you can get a cable on Amazon to turn that into another 3.5 millimeter input. I don't know why anybody else would need a second one, but if you need it for any reason, you know, maybe you want to run one to the back of your car so that people in the back seat had a way of plugging, you know, their 3.5 in. Who knows? I don't know. You couldn't get yet another one. On the JVC, you just have to activate that port in the settings. Now, on the Pioneer, I didn't do it on this one. I did it on the other one. I didn't even hook it up on this one. I believe there are cables you could buy to do the same thing. It's a different type of connector. I forget what it's called, but it's specific to the satellite type. I mean, specific to satellite tuners. But there are some that you could convert into another input if you needed to, if you weren't using it for satellite. All right, moving on. Why don't I just run through the settings? If you go into the master control and press that once, again, that brings you into your settings, and you could scroll through the different groups, you know, whatever it might be. So system, the mix track settings, functions, audio settings, entertainment. There's not too much under that. I'll show it in a second. Illumination, so you could set your background colors. And back to system. So I'll run into system real quick. You just press enter on the master control. Depending where you were last in the settings, it'll bring that right back up, which is actually really nice. By the way, that's how you get into your system settings. On the JVC, I think there's a menu button somewhere that you would hit. Something nice about the JVC I liked was when you press in the master control button on it, or the big button, it just automatically mutes whatever you're doing. And I thought that was really cool, because you never know how quickly you might have to just mute everything depending on what's going on. The Pioneer, this button brings you into your settings. There is a button, I think it's banned, that if you're playing something from your phone, and maybe other things, I'm not sure, it does mute or pause what you're listening to. It doesn't do anything, I believe, on radio. I'm not sure if it does anything on auxiliary. Well, I mean, I'm on radio. You know, on band right now, that button's going to change my band, so that's not going to do it. But good to know that if you are on another source, you can hit the band button and it'll mute what you're listening to. So, okay, so the Pioneer, the button brings you into system settings, so I'm going to go back into system. Warning tone, on or off. What that does is if you have it activated and on, as soon as you turn off your car, you'll hear, like, after a couple seconds, you hear like 5 beeps to remind you to remove your faceplate, if that's what you want to do. By the way, the faceplate comes off really easily on this unit. It's a little tricky at first until you figure it out. If I remember properly, I'm not going to do it right now. You press the release button right down here, it pops out. On mine, I have to push it up just a little bit and then pull it, and then it comes right off. And going back in, you just put it in the left side first and pop it back in. Okay, so that's what, whoops. Set system. That's what warning tone is. Auxiliary on. If you want to disable your auxiliary port, the 3.5, you can do that. If you're not going to use it, I would disable it, because that way it won't show up in your sources when you're scrolling through. It's one less to skip over. I have it on because that's what I have my Sirius hooked up to. Bluetooth audio, you can turn that off or on. Clear memory, that is specific to your Bluetooth settings. I had that problem, or I have that problem with that Bluetooth issue with this staticky sound every once in a while. Pioneered it said to hit clear memory on that to clear it out. It didn't help. Bluetooth version, just your Bluetooth version. The next setting was App Connect mode. I'm not really an expert at this, and believe me, any of this stuff is the best I could figure. The manual for the Pioneer is far from perfect. I mean, you're lucky to get maybe a sentence about each function. So, you know, it's best effort. Anyway, App Connect mode, the best I could figure. And this has to do with, you know, if you're using an app like Pandora built into the stereo itself, and how it's controlled. You could either have it connected by a wire, meaning your USB cable, or Bluetooth, one or the other. I have it set for wired. So if I don't have my connection to my wired connection to my phone, Pandora just doesn't even show up as a source when I'm flicking through the sources. It only shows up if I'm connected by wire. And then if I do connect up to the Pandora, it syncs up with my phone, and then I could use all the buttons on the phone that are specific to Pandora to make changes while I'm using the app. You know, skipping tracks, thumbs up, thumbs down, that sort of thing. I should be able to do a demonstration of this at the end. Next one, language, calendar, clock setting, and back to engine alert, engine off alert. Mix tracks. So this is, I didn't think I would ever use this, to be honest with you, the mix tracks feature, and I may never use it all that much. It's probably geared more towards kids. It is kind of cool though, but basically what it does, if you're connected up by USB, it doesn't seem to work by Bluetooth, at least for me. If you're connected up by USB and you're listening to songs from your phone or your device, and you hit the mix button up here, that'll put you into mix tracks mode, and basically it funkifies your stereo a little bit. A couple things it does, it will flash your lights on your stereo to the beat of the music, and that's customizable to make it flash using the bass tones, or you could set it to the music in general, so whether it's high or low notes, it'll flash to the beat. So it does that, and you could change the colors depending on, you know, what color pattern you want. You can set the display to kind of go into kind of like a screensaver mode. There's two of them that kind of bounce around to the beat, or you could just have it set to show what your display is. Anyway, it's kind of cool. The other thing it does is if you do skip songs, when you go from song to song, it kind of mixes almost like a DJ would, transitioning from one song to the next. It just puts some funky effects into it. I'll do a demonstration of it at the end, and you could kind of see what it does. All right, that would be mix tracks. Going to, sorry, hit that too hard. Function menu, best station memory. Basically, best station memory, if I remember correctly, is it will do a quick scan of your FM or probably even AM channels and pick the best ones with the strongest signals in your area and assign them to your presets automatically. Local, if I remember correctly, I think that is off and on. It's a setting to adjust how sensitive your FM receiver is. You know, if you want it to ignore stations that don't have a very clear signal, then you could adjust it there. Tuning mode, manual, or I believe this is when you're tuning, like FM tuning, and you turn the dial to change channels. Manual will go one increment at a time, unless you hold it down, and then you could go fast. Or automatic would automatically jump to the next strong signal station. And that's it for these settings. Anyway, you know what? Those both seem to be very FM oriented. So I wonder if it depends what source you're on for function. Let me just go and I'm going to change my source to, I'll change it to Bluetooth. And now I'm going to go back in to function. Yeah, so depending how you're hooked up at the time and what source you're on, the function settings within the menu is going to change a little bit. So that's why it was really FM oriented when I went in there before. So I won't spend too much time on that. Audio, next subsection, you go into that. It's just going into the subwoofer. That's probably where I was last. But basically these are all your settings for your audio levels and adjustments. So high pass filter, if you want to cut off all, I forget if it's above or below, you could check the manual, but it's above a certain frequency if you want to filter out. So say your music's too bassy and you want to filter out the lows, you can do that. Actually, since it's called high pass filter, I would say you're probably filtering out the high notes, not the lows. SLA, I don't remember what that is. Fade or balance, same as always, move your audio up, back, left, and right. Can't specifically go to a certain speaker and adjust those. I think the JVC did that. Preset EQ, you can set certain equalizer settings and have presets for them if you'd like to change them based on what music you're listening to. It also has some preset ones, like vocal and things like that. GEQ, I don't remember what that is, but obviously equalizer based. Loudness, there's the loudness functionality works really well. I have it disabled just because for my particular stereo system, I mean my speaker system and amplifier, it seems to like things best without it. But I believe there's low, medium, and high, depending on what your needs are. It does work, and it works pretty well. Subwoofer, you could go in and change the settings for your subwoofer. I think you could have subwoofer 1 and subwoofer 2, and those would be set up by your low-level outputs on the back. Back of the radio has 3 sets of pre-outs for amplifiers or subwoofers. So I'm using 2 out of the 3 for my JBL system in this car. I don't have a subwoofer. I think that was it. Bass booster, again, if you want to boost your bass, you can do that in there, and you could adjust it by increments. I don't. And we're back to high pass filter. Back to the main menu. Entertainment. I believe this is a pretty simple setting, and all that does is you could choose between simple, spectrum analyzer, or level indicator, and that's what it's going to do. You know, probably after a few seconds, after you change something on your stereo, like change the station or change the song, it'll tell you what it is for a little bit, and then it'll likely jump to this until you do something else. There's another setting called calendar. Looks like it's the date and time. I just have it on simple because I'm boring. That's entertainment. Alright, illumination. So, like most middle tier stereos, lower to middle and above, you can change the color of your buttons and your display. You could change them individually for each, and you could choose between preset ones that they have in there to make it easier, or you could also customize it and choose from very specific adjustments of colors. You could pretty much find just about every color you want. The ones I ended up choosing for my car, you could see it's kind of dark out now because I wanted you to be able to see it better. Mine, I had to do, you could only have one setting for this for both day and night. It does dim with the lights. If I turn my headlights on, you can see it dims out. But as far as my buttons go and my display, I had to kind of choose my colors and brightness based on all around what looks the best. So even though it doesn't seem to match up my clock up above, which you can't really see anyway right now the way I have the camera aimed, it was the best for the daytime. And let's see if I go back in to illumination. One tip: if you are going to customize your color to different ones than the preset colors, you have to go, for it to work, it's a little tricky to get into the settings for it. You have to be on either buttons or display. You can't be on buttons and display for the settings, or else you will not see an option for custom. It's a little tricky. Dimmer setting, I have mine cranked up all the way to the highest, but you could change your dimmer level. I take that back. Dimmer setting is how you want the radio to handle a transition to nighttime. So you could I have it set sync vehicle illumination. So there's a wire that I had to find on my wiring harness to connect up to the stereo, which triggers it when the lights go on to dim. So that's how I have it set, but you can also change it to sync with clock, like I mentioned earlier probably. If you don't have that wire in your car, then you could set it to dim at a certain time of day to compromise, but it's something. Or you could force it to be dim, or you could have it not dim ever. And again, I have it set to this. Brightness is where you could set how bright it is. I have it turned up all the way, 10. Phone, this is where you can, when you get a phone call in, if you want it to change colors, I have it set to off. You could make it flash. You could flash crazy. A couple different options. Actually, a lot of options. How about that? So I have it off. Basically, I know when my phone's ringing because it's loud and it rings. I don't need it to flash. Illum effect. I don't remember what that is. I'm sorry. I have it off. Ah, crap. Okay. Color setting. I guess that's where you set your color. I thought I already went through that, but yeah, I did. So color setting is where you choose your colors. Alright, back to the main menu, and that is everything. So those are all the settings on the radio. Like I said on mine, audio settings, I have it set pretty much to factory because that's what works best in my car. Your car might be different depending on your speakers. Alright, I'm going to stop this and then I'll come back and I'll do a quick demonstration of the Pandora app and of making a phone call.